Given that we just had a big martial law drill up here in Canada and a lot of people's rights were violated and they were kind of tortured and detained for a long time, I thought I would do a vlog about what you can do to kind of protect yourself when you go to a protest, so that you're either less likely to get arrested, or that if you do, you'll be able to sort of protect yourself against some of the torture techniques and things like that they use against you. Good news and bad news regarding the protests. Toronto Sun, Warmington, cops had hands cuffed. See, the good news is that the mainstream is now basically admitting that they use provocateurs. See, the cops had cameras all over downtown, and they could see what was going on those streets when the black bloc were, lighting cars on fire and smashing windows, and they were given the order to stand down. So now the Sun is basically implying that, this was a police operation. This was intentional. So the good news is that it's coming out in the mainstream. The bad news is the fact that it happened at all. Now, this was a martial law drill, and it doesn't mean that we're going to have this kind of thing all the time. In fact, I think things will go back to normal. But if they're doing a drill like this, there's a reason for it. They must be foreseeing having to use these tactics at some point in the future. One possible reason that I could think of could be civil unrest due to food shortages, but I won't go into that in this vlog. Although there's a lot of info out there pointing to coming food shortages. Okay, so what can you do when you go to a protest? Number one, dressing appropriately for a protest. Do wear a helmet. I think a bicycle helmet would be better, but any kind of helmet will do. That way you won't get your head smashed in. Don't wear high heels. This is a big no-no for obvious reasons. Do bring an umbrella, and preferably wear some kind of rain jacket, even if it's hot, because the New World Order likes to make it rain, and then when you're all wet, they're going to put you in a paddy wagon with air conditioning and you're going to freeze. So it's a good idea to be able to keep yourself from getting soaked. Don't wear a shirt like this if you don't want to get arrested, or like this. That's just asking for trouble.
Do try to hide your identity.
Preferably your gender too. Don't look like you're poor. Do try to pass yourself off as a rich muckety-muck. And if anybody gives you any trouble, tell them that your husband will call a press conference and see to it that they lose their job. Don't look like too much of a hippie. Do look like a nun. I mean, who would arrest a nun? You go straight to hell for that, Don't look like you're intoxicated. Do look pregnant. If you arrest me and I go into labor, it's going to be all over the news. Don't look like a pregnant nun. That's just going too far.
Lucky number 7. Come on now, lucky number 7.
You cops are all fuckers.
Oh.
Now, let's say that even though you dressed up like Aunt Flo or Sister Euphoria, you still got yourself arrested. Or you might be getting arrested. So what are some things you can do? Well, you got to keep in mind what the police are likely to do to you to make you suffer. Number one, avoid getting wet. Like I said, the New World Order likes to make it rain on protest days and things like that. So try to have something on, maybe like a raincoat type thing, or keep it with you, or have an umbrella to avoid that. And two, maybe have an extra layer, even if it's warm outside, because if you get arrested, they're gonna freeze your ass. So it's better to have more clothing than less, even though it might be slightly uncomfortable while you're out. You might be glad you did it once you get inside the van or the detention facility. And another thing to keep you from freezing is cayenne pepper. This stuff is amazing. A couple weeks ago I met a really hot truther from Ottawa, and we were out on the balcony and it was freezing cold here. It was like October weather at the end of June. And Karen and I were wearing our winter coats, and this guy was in a tank top. It's because he takes cayenne pepper. And I tried it the next day or a couple days later, and it works really well. So take some of that before you go out. That way, if you end up in the ice cream truck, you won't freeze. Another thing you can do to fight cold or being tortured with cold is mind over matter techniques. People can undergo surgery while under self-hypnosis. That's how powerful your mind is. So you can learn to use your mind to overcome physical discomforts. Some other things that they like to do to you are deprive you of food and water, and deprive you of letting you use the bathroom. Okay, so for food, what I would recommend is that you eat something that has a lot of protein and fat in it before you go. Don't have like a veggie wrap, because you'll be really hungry within a few hours, you know? So eat, like, for example, bacon takes 8 hours to digest. So if you eat like protein like that, you probably won't be hungry so soon. Water, well, drink a lot of water, but then you're gonna have the problem of how are you gonna go to the bathroom? Okay, this is a neat trick that I'm gonna tell you. It sounds a little wacky maybe, but it really does work. It's an external catheter. Yeah, don't laugh. I have friends who are doctors who put these things on themselves just to go out, to be able to go out and get drunk or sit through an entire hockey game without having to leave to go to the bathroom. It only works for guys. Sorry, ladies, you're out of luck. Maybe the ladies can put on some Depends, but just a thought. Okay, the catheter, it's like a condom. You put it on your dick and it attaches to a bag. If you can score one of those, they can put you in the truck for 8 hours. If you have to pee, well, you just pee into the bag. And possibly, if you're really deprived of water for a long time, you can even drink your own pee if you're collecting it like that. I know it sounds gross, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Another thing is restraints. You can get out of those flex cuffs. Okay, I've never actually done this myself, but I've seen it on the internet. Go to ITS Tactical and they'll show you how you just bust out of flex cuffs. In front, in the back, double ones, there's tricks for it. Okay, and the last thing is they will try to intimidate you. They will try to psychologically torture you, to scare you. This is probably the hardest part in some ways, but it's also the easiest part in other ways. Well, in Canada, for example, this was a drill. Anyone who went in there who understands the larger picture would know that they were not going to be kept and detained for a long time. That it was a drill and they were going to have to be let out, because we're not there yet in Canada for taking innocent college students and detaining them like that for years, like they do with terrorism. You know, people who've been charged with terrorism down in Guantanamo. But if you ever like illegally detain like that temporarily, you really just have to learn to toughen up your mind to not let them intimidate you. You might be thinking, oh yeah, it's easy for you to say, you've never been through it. Actually, I have. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but I have been interrogated repeatedly for days. And I have been through things like that. Things that people would consider dehumanizing. You know, having gone through that, I went through a whole process of first resisting against it, and then trying to go along with it, and then trying to fake it. You know, you go through different phases when you're in a situation like that. But the biggest thing that I learned from that is they can only get in your mind if you let them. So how can I put this? You need to learn to not let them intimidate you, not let them inside you. You need to find your spiritual strength that will help you to overcome absolutely anything. And you might want to draw some inspiration from the Christian martyrs who were thrown into the ring with lions and things like that. You know, I mean, that's an extreme, but you can be strong, you can overcome these things, you can refuse to be intimidated, and you can refuse to let them in and to break your spirit. So I hope these tips help, but I hope you never have to use them.